When you're ready, action.
That was, last one was a bit weak.
Not as strong as, yeah.
I'll do one more.
The thing about our film was that, unlike the first film, which shot a lot on the stage, I'd say we shot 85% actually in real location. But there was one sequence in the film that it would be impossible to shoot on the real set. First of all, the set didn't exist. Second of all, it would have been impossibly dangerous to shoot up there, which was the idea that the apes would ascend this unfinished skyscraper, and the final battle in the film would actually take place on the girders of this unfinished skyscraper. And so that was the one thing in the movie that we shot virtually, which essentially means that the set didn't exist. You shot it in a place called the Volume, where everybody gets together, and it's basically a fluorescent lit stage with nothing in it other than scaffolding and mats and pads and all these things that are kind of taped out to be sort of the shape of the set. And then we shot the action.
Action.
And at the beginning of the third act, where just as the moment where it seems that the human beings and the apes have found a chord and the apes have helped the humans to restore power, Cobra pulls out a gun and shoots Caesar. And it then escalates very quickly. Apes out of control, thinking that humans have done this. Cobra lying to them. And taking leadership and basically leading the apes to war. And Caesar has to then face him down, and a big, big battle takes place, and it's carnage.
We've got close to 1,000 people working on the film at Weta. We've divided the film up into 4 sections, and each section has its own visual effects supervisor and what we call a visual effects sequence supervisor. So we've got our Ape Village team, we've got our San Francisco team, we've got our Ape Forest team, and then we've got our Koba's Tower team, which is the team that deals with all the stuff that happens inside the Koba Tower. Sort of the conclusion of the third act takes place in this abandoned skyscraper. The story behind it is it was under construction and the viral apocalypse hit and they stopped.
The brief from the production designer was that this was meant to be a sort of parasitic architecture, so a skyscraper that was basically planted on top of an existing kind of ground level structure that's located at 1 Market Street in San Francisco. We did start with some design studies looking at existing kind of abandoned structures.
You know, the idea was to kind of take the ending of the first film where Caesar's triumphantly up in the redwoods and to take it now into civilization. So we have the scaffolding of a half-completed skyscraper that's both a symbol of the end of civilization from the first film, but also a symbol of the new heights that the apes have reached because now they're battling for control on top of these skyscrapers.
I like in the previews now the way when this falls and it's going that all of these apes are falling. It's really cool. I still wished that the structure itself, because of the shock wave, had apes kind of scrambling and having to hold on.
We had a couple of weeks to sort of brainstorm on this, and there was a group of us that got together and we just started bouncing the ideas back and forth with Matt.
As this is buckling, even just a buckling could drop you down, and then the explosion throws you in there, and as it drops more, Cobra gets thrown in there. It was like, this is the idea, and he'd like things, not like things, and we'd, you know, just keep going away and correcting it until we sort of got the end result that he liked.
So then that's how we are. Okay.
Great.
Cool.
So then it was a couple weeks of rehearsing with the stunt guys and getting all the movement right and all the choreography down and rehearsing it over and over. Then the actors would come in and we'd teach them the choreography.
What happens, you come together and it's just a messy fight, like, you know, your legs, you're hitting.
They would learn the choreography, which they did an amazing job. I mean, because they're performers behind it, you know, so actually their performance will be in the film.
Caesar, brother, to human.
We staged that on the mocap stage just using very simple pipe rigs that allowed the actors to perform and move from level to level and to mimic all the key action beats.
3, 2, 1, action.
and then we fill in all the big movement with a lot of keyframe animation to put it all together. So that scene becomes an entirely CG sequence.
We didn't have the set, so we tried to still have it emanate from the actors, but they weren't in a real space. And so you would block things out with the actors, and you'd have to imagine, okay, but there's a precipitous drop here, and what's the light like, and what is this made out of, and what are you hitting this character with?
I think if I'm doing that all the time, it's not going to register that that's what I'm looking
Right,
for.
but if
Whereas
it's
I need
more
to
like,
feel the intent.
if it's more like this, like in other words, if you're still down in this zone and you're peaking across, and it's that repeated peak, that could be cool.
Sure,
Yeah.
I do cool. That.
And then when it's south, if you're like,
Give it longer.
and yeah, just but it's really about
Breathing.
the breath. It's
Copy
like,
that.
and it's in the that's boom. That's what he's anticipating.
It was a very challenging experience, but very exciting. And that was achieved through the actors on the stage. It was also achieved through, we did a previs and post-visualized sequence where essentially you take the set as it exists in three-dimensional space, and almost like a video game, you start moving around and choosing the camera angles. It's a very unusual process, and was really unusual for me because I had never done something on a set that didn't exist in three-dimensional space except inside the computer. And it was a challenge, but it was very exciting. The idea right now is that Caesar arrives and sees that apes are in trouble and is trying to help, and maybe something in particular is stuck, like it's too heavy. And then all of a sudden you look and there's Caesar's son. So we can actually make a moment. It's like, you know, some sort of thing, and it's like, rah, and then the two of them are doing it together, and then in the midst of doing that thing, and just as that ape is saved, or that group of apes is saved, then all of a sudden, and you're like, oh my God, you're gonna shoot at these guys at this moment? When the bullets are coming, it would be great if there was a little bit of like scramble to it. I know it's hard to do, but there's like a moment where
Scrambling up, like slipping.
Yeah, just a little more scrambly. So it's because it's like they're being shot at, so it's like you're wanting to evade as if you could. The natural instinct to try and evade being shot.
I'm really glad that Toby and Andy were able to do the fight sequence themselves, because so much of it was just performance.
And action. Action.
It's not so much the fighting, it's the performance behind it. So they did a great job.
Ape. Not kill. Ape. You are not ape.
That scene in the movie is so heartbreaking in many ways because I actually liked that character of Koba. I liked him a lot because I felt for him. I understood why he was like that. I felt sad that he couldn't sort of see that in himself. But that fight is all about somebody letting go of their best friend. It's not just about beating the bad guy up. It's about letting go of your best friend. And for me, that's the easiest way to sort of approach the music and find the tone. growing up with Planet of the Apes, one of the huge influences in my life was a composer named Jerry Goldsmith, and Jerry Goldsmith wrote the score for the very first Planet of the Apes. And it was sort of a landmark score of its time because he was doing this experimental music.
Get rid of that creature!
It's very harsh, very sort of atonal, meaning it's not melodic, it's very just in your face, and it can be very ugly at times, but it fit perfectly with that movie. But I knew that this new movie would need a completely different approach. But I didn't want to abandon the hallmarks of the original film, and so for me it was about being experimental in my own way and keeping that spirit alive within the context of emotion, making sure that always emotion rules everything. I wanted a theme for the humans, you know, and I wanted a theme for Caesar, which also meant a theme for sort of the apes overall and this new society that he's trying to build. I wanted something simple and noble that you could literally play with one hand on a piano if you needed to, you know, and it's bum, 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 bum. Then there was also a theme which started out as just a sort of danger motif. A sort of idea of something is wrong, and it slowly became Koba's theme. It grows throughout the movie, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until the entire orchestra's playing it at one point towards the end when they're battling. The human theme is something I just wanted it to be sad, because that whole idea, which we're only sadly ourselves, you know, inches away from it happening somewhere, somehow on this planet, where some crazy virus gets a foothold and can't stop it. That is what I kept thinking about when I was writing that theme, and it was this idea of just simple, slow, and quiet.
In honor of what a leader and beautiful person you are, so I would like to present you with something, please. Caesar's spear.
What? No way. What? Are you kidding me?
Here you go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I am a massive Planet of the Apes fan. Embarrassingly so. I still have all my toys from when I was a kid, and Matt was the same way. He loved it as much as I did because it was one of the things that we bonded on when we became friends. And so this was like, for both of us, the chance to be able to work together on a Planet of the Apes story was an incredible opportunity for us. So we were both very excited.
We had the good fortune of having a very large concept with apes and this huge title. We have the great technology, so we have the spectacle. Really what we wanted to achieve was a great dramatic story. Matt came in and he really wanted to focus on a story that's about family.
The great thing about these movies, they're so powerful because they resonate on so many levels. And they're a great entertainment, but they're movies that really do mean something. It has scale, it's epic, it's a mythic journey. But at the same time, it has this incredible tenderness and emotionality to it, which is really important. And we'd be literally skating on the surface if we didn't invest in that. So the making of this film has been extraordinary as an acting challenge and in terms of, you know, really finding, as I say, that the emotional center of it has been extraordinary.
I hope that the audience is going to be swept up in the very uncanny nature of feeling like they were truly in the world of apes and that the most mysterious thing about it is that they could relate to the internal lives of what was going on inside of those characters, that through the experience that the audience themselves become apes, that they feel for the plight of the apes, and that they feel the thrill of the apes, and that they actually also feel the terror of being in the midst of these animals. And so that it should be hopefully a very, very exciting experience because it's emotional and terrifying and thrilling.